Hi, and my name's Rebecca. I'm a solicitor at Edward Hanson Lewis, and today I'm hosting a webinar to discuss the process of buying your first home. When thinking about joining the property ladder, which I think is the majority of people's aim, there's lots of things that you need to consider, not just the mortgage, but consider the location of the property. Different locations have different prices. So a two-bedroom house in, for example, Leicester could be worth a lot more in London. So please bear that in mind when looking what type of property you want, what location, and think about your budget. It's all good and well having the deposit, but can you afford the monthly mortgage payments? But on top of the mortgage payments, you do need to consider as well the other expenditures, such as council tax, your utility bills, if you're looking off Sky. So there's lots of things to take into consideration while saving your deposit to get on the property ladder. In terms of the property type, it's worthwhile noting that it could be either a house or a flat, and the differences in the types of ownership. So if you was to own a house, you'd own the freehold title. But if you was to own a flat, you would own the leasehold title. And what that would mean that you would need to pay maybe ground rent or service charge to a landlord. So there's something else to take into consideration out of your monthly pay packet. Now, deposit. Now, a lot of people find that they could afford a mortgage, but it's getting that all-important deposit together to enable them to get on the property ladder. Now, there's a lot of schemes out there at the moment to help first-time buyers, and one of them, and probably the most popular one, is whereby you can have a 5% deposit. This is because the government will guarantee, if you like, the remainder of the deposit, so therefore you'll be able to get a 95% mortgage. Not everyone's eligible for these, but it's worthwhile discussing with your bank or mortgage broker. If you're struggling to get a deposit together, a lot of people, and it is more commonly accepted now, is that they're getting help from parents or grandparents where they're gifting them the deposit. Now, the lender will always want to know where your deposit monies are coming from. So if you are having the benefit of a gift, that will need to be disclosed to the lender at the point you make the application, but also the solicitors will reconfirm that to the lender during the buying process. The important thing to note is it is a gift, therefore it should be given to you unconditionally and it shouldn't be repayable. If you're getting the deposit by way of a loan, so your parents say, we'll give you, for example, £5,000, but it's payable back in 5 years, or in the event of a sale, what you'd need to look at there is different options, and that's something we can discuss after these slides because it's quite in depth. But it could be we put together a loan agreement or a declaration of trust, but in any event, everything will need to be referred to the lender, and it's the lender's discretion as whether they're happy to lend based on how you've acquired your deposit. Obviously, the larger the deposit you do have, whether it's through your own savings or a gifted deposit, can affect the rates you have on your actual mortgage. And typically, if you have a larger deposit, your monthly payments will be less, and the interest rates are normally a lot less too. But again, for more information on what mortgage products and rates are available, the best person to direct that inquiry to is, in fact, your broker or your bank. So in terms of the mortgage, it's really important to meet with your mortgage advisor or the bank before you put in an offer in on a property. And the reason for that is, one, you want to know that you can get a mortgage and you're not wasting your time by viewing properties that are out of your reach. But also, the majority of estate agents, before accepting an offer, will want to check that you've got a mortgage in principle in place before they can put that offer forward to the seller. So you have two options in terms of your mortgage. You can go to the bank, normal high street bank, whether you bank with them or not, or you can go to a broker who will look at the whole of the market. A lot of the banks or building societies are also taking that stance as well at the moment. I'm not sure if you've seen the Nottingham adverts. They don't just offer Nottingham products, they also offer a wide range of products, whether it's a Halifax, Santander, or any other high street bank. So it depends on your situation as to which option suits you best. If you've been banking with your bank for a number of years, they tend to offer good rates to existing current account holders. So it might be worthwhile having a quick chat with them, see what rates they've got available. But again, speak to your broker or bank to find out what the best rate is for you. Like with anything, you'll need to provide evidence as to your identification. So that could be your passport, driver's license, bank statements and wage slips. And you'll also need to verify your income to confirm that what you've put on your application is what you actually earn. Now, in terms of the mortgage, you'll first get a mortgage in principle, which is a document that you should probably carry around with you when you're going to see estate agents, because like I said previously, they will want to see this before they validate any offer on a property. Once you've put an offer in on a property and it's accepted, your bank or broker will let the mortgage company know. They will then come out and value the property to make sure it is worth what they're lending on. Once the valuation is satisfactory, it will then go to offer. And it's normally this process that takes the longest, because they validate all the information that you've given. And it's normally that what commonly you hear solicitors say, we're just waiting on the mortgage offer, because without the actual offer, we cannot proceed to completion. Now, viewing properties, this can be the fun part, I suppose. The best thing to do if you've got a specific area you want to move to is to contact the agents in that area, and they can let you know when a property of your specification comes on the market. And what they tend to do is email you or call you as soon as a property is about to go on the market, so that you hopefully can get first dibs, if you like, on going to view that property. So it's always worthwhile being specific with the estate agents. But bear in mind, once you're on their mailing list, you might get other properties sent to you as well. Another really handy tool when looking at viewing properties is the Rightmove app. It's quite a handy app for your smartphone, and basically you can put in your search criteria in there and it'll bring up all the results, and you can list it in whatever's more to your preference. So it could be location or price. Not forgetting the new build properties, go and visit the developers on site and see what offers they've got available. Normally they offer great incentives if you was to buy property off plan, so that's where it's not built yet. But probably one of the most important tips I could give you is probably take someone with you. When viewing properties, you go in with your heart, and you've already envisaged yourself sitting in that living room. Take someone with you who can take a step back and you can discuss the property with after your viewing for things that you might not have noticed. If you've got anyone in the family or you're friends with anyone that works in the construction trade, take them with you, and they might be able to see whether or not there's any obvious defects in the property. Okay, so the offer itself. Once you've found a property and you're wanting to make an offer on the property, you put this offer through the estate agents usually, not with the sellers direct. They will want to validate that offer, and that again will be to double check that you've got a mortgage in principle. Sometimes some agents will ask you to go through to their in-house mortgage advisor just to validate the information you've given. But once it's accepted, they'll give you a call and they'll send you a letter to confirm your offer has been accepted. And it's at this point that you need to let your bank or broker know that you've had the mortgage offer accepted, so they can start the next process in your mortgage application. You will need solicitors. So the best thing to do is to ring and obtain a quote. Different solicitors work in different ways, but probably the more attractive way of instructing a solicitor would be to get a quote and ensure it's a fixed fee quote. So all solicitors will have to pay out the same disbursements, whether it's stamp duty, land registry fee or searches. So the main thing to concentrate on is the actual legal fee itself if you're comparing quotes with other quotes. But please do be careful of any hidden costs. Check the bottom of the page and make it clear when you get that quote that there are no hidden surprises. Because what we've found in the past is clients have asked us to look at a quote they've received from another firm, and whilst on the face of it, it looks like a cheaper quote, there's actually a lot of supplements and add-ons for certain transactions, which effectively makes the quote itself more expensive. Once you're happy with your legal fees, you need to instruct your solicitors. At this stage, they'll probably ask you for all of the details, so your name, your current address, the property address that you're buying, the estate agents, and the price that you're paying for it. That'll enable them to open a file and organise for a welcome pack to be posted to you. Now, the welcome pack itself is it's not that thick of a document when buying a property, and it basically confirms again the fees that you're paying, and there's a questionnaire for you to complete which helps with the transaction. And once you've completed the questionnaire, you just need to return that back to your solicitors together with your identification documents and also money on account for searches. At Edward Hans and Lewis, we just ask for £250 on account, and that enables us to order searches as soon as we've received the draft contracts. So on to the process itself. When buying a property, it is very much process driven, but typically it should take between 8 and 12 weeks from start to finish for the property to be yours. But the start date in terms of when that time frame commences is very much dependent on when we receive the draft contracts. The draft contracts is the bundle that the seller solicitors put together and send to us as the buyer solicitors. And in there is the office copies, also known as the deeds, the property information form, and the fixtures and fittings form. And it's with these documents we're able to order the searches and do our investigations on the property. So in terms of the searches, we also have to wait for the office copies to come in, so we have an up-to-date plan, but we also need to make sure we've got your money on account, because solicitors cannot pay out money from their client's account without monies being in that account from you. So we would order the searches at the earliest possible date. Searches tend to take, well, depending on the year, around about 12 working days to come back. But that's very much dependent on the individual council, what staff they've got at the moment, if they're experiencing any backlogs. For example, at the moment in Oban Wigston, they've got quite a large backlog at the moment, so searches are taking in excess of 25 days to be returned. So it is really important when you return your welcome pack to make sure you also return your search monies, so that we can order searches at the very earliest possible date, so the searches can be processed in the background whilst we work through the transaction. We will receive a copy of the mortgage offer, and we usually get this around about the same time you'll receive a copy of your mortgage offer as well. Now, what we'll do with that mortgage offer is we'll double check it, check there's no special conditions or retentions where the lender's holding back some monies until works have been completed, and then we'll send you a letter just reconfirming the main conditions on the mortgage offer. Now, we won't be offering you financial advice, but it's basically to point out the risks of having a mortgage, and the main one being that if you do not keep up with your repayments, the bank could repossess the property. Now, whilst all of this is going on, we'll be looking through the paperwork received from the seller solicitors, and we'll be looking to raise any initial inquiries. And that's basically just to make sure we understand the property completely and to enable us to provide you the best report on the property. Once we've received all of the searches in and all the inquiries have been responded to satisfactorily, we will put together a report on the property. This will be a report that we'll send out to you with copies of the searches and any other information that we feel should be flagged to your attention. It's important you read through this report because we will not visit the property ourselves. Therefore, what you need to do is to check that in the report there's no discrepancies of when you've seen the property. So, for example, they've said we've had no building works done to the property, and you know there's a big extension on the back of the property. It's important that you make us aware of that so we can do the investigations for you. Okay, so once everyone's happy with the report, we'll organise for the contracts to be signed. Now, we understand everyone's really busy and it's really hard to get time off work just to meet your solicitors. So what we can do is give you the option of making an appointment to come to one of our offices to sign the contracts, or we can email or post the contracts out to you to sign and return to our offices. It's also at this stage we'll provide you with a completion statement, and in there you can see all the finances attached to the transaction, and it will detail how much we require to be transferred to us in order to enable us to exchange contracts. if you're buying the property with another person, you can own the property in up to 4 names. And it's important to decide at this stage how you want to own the property. You might hear the phrases joint tenants and tenants in common thrown about, and this sometimes gets people confused because they think, well, I'm buying the property, I'm not a tenant. But it's just a phrase that's used by the land registry. And there's 2 different ways in which you can own the property. The first one is joint tenants. This is where you own the property together, and in the event of one of you dying, the survivor would automatically own the whole of the property without the need of that share of the property being left in a will. The alternative way to own the property is tenants in common, and that's where you own the property. Again, it can be equally 50-50, but in the event of one of the owners dying, that person's share will be left to the beneficiary of their will. Therefore, the survivor will then own the property with another person. So there's the 2 options. If you decide on one of the options and decide to change at a later date, so your circumstances change in 5-10 years' time, it's something that can be changed really quite easily at the land registry. Then we'll move on to exchange of contracts. So it's at this stage the transaction becomes legally binding. So once contracts have been exchanged, the date will be set for the completion, and neither party can easily pull out of the transaction or change the conditions of the transaction. So this is the date that everyone, including the estate agents, always push towards because it makes it legally binding. Therefore, the completion date is set in stone. Now, you don't need to be around on the day that contracts are exchanged. Your solicitor will just need to be able to contact you to get your authority for them to exchange on your behalf. And then typically there's a gap between exchange and completion. We're finding more and more now that gap's being shortened. Longer the good days where you could have a good 28 days between exchange and completion, but it's typically a week in between. On completion itself, on the morning of completion, we will organise for the monies to be transferred to the seller's solicitors. And once it's received, it's completed, and that's when you can collect your keys. But you will receive a call from your solicitors to confirm when you can collect the keys, and typically it's usually around lunchtime, just because we're waiting on the monies to transfer from one bank to another. On the day of completion, that's the day you are the legal owner, you can collect the keys and move into property. But in terms of the registering the property in your name, that's something we'll do post-completion. And it can take about 6 weeks for the application at the land registry to be registered and returned back to us. And when we receive it, we'll organise for that to come direct to your new home. Now, it's not bundles of documents like you'd expect. It's an electronic title deed, so unfortunately it's not very exciting, but it is what it is, and it does detail you as the owners. But like I say, albeit it might be a delay in the property being registered in your name, the contract paperwork and everything else to do with the property confirms that you were the legal owner as of the date of completion. Now, once you're in the property, a lot of people neglect to think of what's next. One of the things to always bear in mind is that your solicitors will enter at the land registry what we call a service address. And this address is the address that the land registry keeps. So if they need to contact you for whatever reason, they will do so at your service address. So if in the future you decide to rent that property out and move into a different property, you need to let the land registry know so that they know that you're not a resident at that address. So if, for example, there was anything untoward to the property, they'll be able to contact you. Now, we touched on briefly how we want to own the property, but whether or not you're owning the property in your sole name or in joint names, it's really important to consider writing a will, because now you probably have the largest asset you will ever own, and you want to make sure that all your hard work, to pay off that mortgage, to get that deposit, goes to someone that you want it to. So things to consider is who do you want to leave it to, or do you want it to be left to charity? At Edward Hanson Lewis, we do have specialist will writers that will be more than happy to give you more information on that. But just be aware that once you own a property, if you was to die, what we call intestate, which means you do not have a will, the property or any of your belongings may not go to who you think they will go to. Well, that's the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, there's a little text box on the right hand side. If you would like to enter any questions there, I'll be more than happy to wait around and respond to any of your inquiries. Okay, I haven't received any questions, but as you can see, my email address is on the slide. So if you've got any questions that you want to me to answer either now or later on, my email address is rebecca.g@ehlsolicitors.co.uk. Once again, thank you for listening and have a good day. Thank you.